If you're a Christian and you went to church today, ask yourself this question. Why is it that you go to church on Sunday when the Bible talks about keeping a Sabbath day holy? Because you see in the Ten Commandments, right? You got the Sabbath day. And let's say that you don't believe in keeping the Sabbath, but you do believe in keeping the Ten Commandments. Then why don't you keep the Sabbath day? Because the Sabbath day is specifically on the seventh day of the week, not the first day of the week. This is how God ordained it from creation. Hebrews 4 reads this: Let us therefore fear, and fear is the keeping the Ten Commandments, fearing God, lest a promise being left us of entering into his rest, any of you should seem to come short of it. For unto us was the gospel preached, as well as unto them. So this person that wrote Hebrews, he's talking about those people during the first Exodus, where they were basically not believing in God, not obeying Him, and they went to go and gather more manna on the Sabbath day. This is in Exodus 16, where 6 days they're supposed to gather, right, manna, and then on the seventh day they were just gonna use what they got on the sixth day because they got twice as much on the sixth day. But then some people didn't believe God that He was going to provide for them on the Sabbath day, so they went and got more. Right? They didn't obey His commandment to keep the Sabbath day. Because believing is obedience. But so, continuing, but the word preached did not profit them, not being mixed with faith in them that heard it. Right? So they heard what God said, but they didn't have faith that God would actually provide for them. For we which have believed do enter into rest. As he said, as I swore in my wrath, if they shall enter into my rest, although the works were finished from the foundation of the world. For he spake in a certain place of the seventh day on this wise. It says the seventh day, right? It doesn't say the first day. And God did rest the seventh day from all his works. And in this place again, if they shall enter into my rest, seeing therefore it remaineth that some must enter therein. Right? You must enter into that Sabbath day rest. And they to whom it was first preached entered not in because of unbelief. And that word unbelief, it means disobedience. The first people that it was preached to, they didn't enter into the Sabbath day because they didn't obey. Again, he limiteth a certain day, saying in David, Today, after so long a time, as it is said, today, if you'll hear his voice, harden not your hearts. If Joshua had given them rest, right, Joshua back in the Old Testament, then would he not afterward have spoken of another day? There remaineth therefore a rest, right? That's word for rest. It actually means a keeping of the Sabbath to the people of God. For he that is entered into his rest, he also has ceased from his works as God did from his, right? God rested on the seventh day, just as you should rest every seventh day. So ask yourself, why is it that if it's one of the Ten Commandments, and you say that you keep the Ten Commandments, right? Like if you go through the Ten Commandments, like which of those should you be allowed to break? But you say that it's okay to break the Sabbath day, one of the Ten Commandments, which doesn't make any sense. So then ask yourself, why is it on, like, why do we have it on Sunday? Like, why do you guys supposedly have it on Sunday if it was always supposed to be on Saturday, the Sabbath? And you'll learn, if you look this up, you'll learn how Constantine changed the Sabbath in 721 AD to the venerable day of the sun, because he was a sun worshiper, S-U-N. He was doing Mithraism and all that stuff. And so he chose to worship on Sun God Day. That's why. You don't know why, because you don't know who you worship, because you don't follow God's Ten Commandments. And then ask yourself too, like, okay, let's say that Sunday was a true Sabbath day. Then why is it that you're still doing business affairs after church on Sunday? Why don't you keep your Sunday holy, even though it's not the Sabbath day? Why is it that even though it's one of the Ten Commandments, all your pastors, if you ask them, will say, "Oh, don't worry about the Sabbath day. That's been abolished." But I thought Yeshua didn't come to abolish that. Right? He didn't come to make void the Ten Commandments. But he magnified the Ten Commandments by saying, if you even look at a woman with lust, right, you've committed adultery already. That's not abolishing adultery. That's magnifying it. Because it's also about the heart posture towards it. So continue to ask yourself, why is it that I'm doing things this way? Why do I keep the Sunday? Why do I go to church on Sunday? Ask yourself why until you figure out the roots, until you can't ask why anymore. Because that's the only way that you're going to be able to come out of this delusion and ask God for the truth.